Aw, does that hurt your feelings? Writers, you need to have thick skin. So let's talk about that in episode 19 of Horrible Writing.
That will never work. You can't push that. Seriously? Don't. Oh my God, that's that's bad. You probably should find other hobbies. You ever learn how to spell? Be happy. You don't bother me. I've seen better people. Do you really want to do? And my third grade, get up.
Welcome to Horrible Writing, the rawest, most candid, in-your-face writing show on the interwebs because none of us have time to suck. Let's do this. Hey everybody, Paul Sadian, your host of Horrible Writing. So, you've got this wonderful idea, best idea ever anybody has ever had. Like, the world needs to hear this idea, and you're going to be the one who tells it. That's awesome. As a creative, I don't feel there will ever be enough stories in the world. Ever. There can't be, especially good ones. Having said that, these ideas, wonderful though they may be, are our babies. We cherish them. We have conceived them. We have born them into the world for the world's enjoyment. And before we release them on the world, there are some things that we have to do. We have to have other eyeballs on the story so that we can sanity check it, so that we can grammar check it, that we can structure check it, flow check it, so that we can do all sorts of checks on it. It's imperative that we do that, that we have others look at our stories. Now, this is not an easy thing to do, ever, and it's definitely not easy when you haven't done it ever in your life, when you may have sensitivities to rejection, or maybe you yourself just aren't emotionally mature enough yet to hear that. And that could happen at any age. Trust me. I'm not talking to the teens in the audience who are saying he's picking on us. No, I'm not, because I have seen some younger folks, younger writers, who have done amazing stuff and are amazing writers, and they can actually handle the critiques. And I have recently gone to a writers' conference where I spoke to a couple people about the writers' group in the area where I live. And one of the people I spoke with was easily in her later 50s and had been a member of the group and had no interest in attending, nor any interest in entertaining my compliments of the group. She just is not a fan of the group, and she was very vocal about what she thought about the group's members. It was a very unhealthy conversation just because she was a toxic person. I picked up on that right away. And obviously I wouldn't give her any more of my time because I don't care to be around toxic people. She did not have thick skin. She claimed she had done decades of writing, but it was all limited to self-published blogs. So, there's nothing wrong with blogs. I write blogs from time to time myself. But if your aim is to be a published writer, if your aim is to create an audio drama and have tens of thousands of people listening to it, you have to be willing to be vulnerable. And you have to be open to critiques. That's part of the game. You have to go into the game knowing that the people who are critiquing you are doing it out of the kindness of their heart and with the objective of helping you improve. I'm not talking about those people on Reddit, on Tumblr, on Twitter, or Facebook who are deriding your writing as juvenile, sloppy, there are just trolls in every aspect of life. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about being part of a professional writer organization or using one of the social sites that leverages writer community, to trade off critiques. Those exist. I'm talking about your local writers group and sitting down with other writers and being vulnerable and sharing your art with them. Those are the people that I'm talking about. And these are the types of people who truly do. They truly want to help. Even when they tell you why your story's not working for them, they're not doing it out of some sense of superiority or need to knock you down. And I'll argue, even if they are, so frickin' what? Who cares? I don't care. I don't care if people in my writers group know that I have 4 audio dramas out there with hundreds of thousands of downloads, 2 manuscripts, 1 getting very close to being published, and I seem to be on the track to at least the bucket list of being a published writer. And maybe, hopefully, someday, a relatively respected, relatively successful published writer. There are people who don't want to play. Just like we talked about in episode 18 about making your writing a priority and some people using the crutch that they're too busy to write as a way to make them feel better about how much writing you're doing. The same thing could be said in the critique world, that some people could be excessive in their critiques, unfair in their critiques, because it makes them feel better about your progress. Here's the way I look at it. Again, I don't care. I don't care what their motivations are. I'm going into the game that each one of those people who I've asked for a critique on writing from, they're doing it from the goodness of their heart, for the love of art, for the love of writing and good storytelling. And they're telling me what doesn't work for them is only meant to help me make it better. And I don't go examine any deeper than that because there's no good, positive, progressive reason to do that. So if you're not one of those people who does that, I urge you to, not that you have to be like me, but don't question other people's motives. You'll never know for sure anyways. So why waste the energy trying to figure out what's happening in someone else's head? Take the feedback, balance it against the other feedback, and keep pressing forward. Now, I talk about naming this episode "Having Thick Skin" because you've got to be able to be open to that. The characters you love don't work for somebody. They all sound the same. You've got to be able to be ready for that and willing to fix it when you hear those things. But the one thing, give you a little bit of insight into my world, I'm okay with it. I've got thick skin. I was in the military. I was in some positions of relative significance and responsible for a whole lot of people. And every time those whole lot of people screwed something up, it was my fault because I was their boss. And I got the ass reaming, even though I didn't do it myself, right? And that is part of the game. But those experiences helped me prepare for this, where this stuff doesn't bother me. It doesn't. I love it. I want to do nothing but write for the rest of my life. I want to travel, spend time with my lovely wife and children, someday be a grandfather, things like that. But, for the most part, I don't want to work for someone else. I just want to write. I want to create stories. I may never get there, but that's what I want. That's my aim. All the things I'm doing are aimed at that. And if someone's trying to help me, cool, because it's just going to make me that much better if I can do it. I get excited about getting those critiques, and I have the thick skin. None of it bothers me because it's all with the aim of making it better, making me better. Now, here's the catch for me. What I've realized lately, I'm taking my book, my manuscript, The Scales. It's a horror story that is based in the world that I created in Atheist Apocalypse. And I say that cautiously because it's nothing to do with that podcast. It won't have any relation to it except that it's set in that world. And there are a few characters from that podcast, some peripheral characters from that podcast, that are going to be part of this story. And that's it. Nothing else matters between the two. I like the story. I've had a number of beta readers, probably about 10 beta readers, who have read the entire thing and really enjoyed it and gave me some really good feedback on some things I can work on. And then what I'm doing is I'm taking a chapter each week to my local writers group as we all do reads of our work. So every single week I get more feedback on a new chapter, and I'm going to work it that way all the way through the end. I'll keep working on all these other things I have going on, but the Scales, its published date has been moved so far right, I'm not even going to give you a published date because I'm going to do this first. I want to go through this entire book with a writers group, with a group of other writers. I want them reading the entire thing and giving me feedback on it. And I want to learn from this experience so I can come back and share this with you all as well. I have learned over the last couple months of doing this that it's all well and good to do this in the critiques that I do get. I'll take them because what they're talking about is the small stuff. The big stuff, the characters, the story, the pacing, the interplay between the characters, all those difficult things, I'm knocking out of the park according to these other writers. It's the small stuff, so I'll take that. What I have noticed, though, again, relating this back to Thick Skin, is after the number of chapters that we've read through, hearing these critiques of this book over time is tough because it's recently I took a chapter I was not pleased with to begin with after reading it right before going to the writers group. I didn't like it now that I had laid eyeballs on it for the first time in months. And it took a shellacking like it needed to because it deserved the shellacking. And then I took the subsequent chapter, which is very high-paced, lots of action because I did that intentionally slow chapter, high-paced chapter to pick back up. And it got good reviews, but it also had some critiques of things I'm going to have to fix. Again, nothing monumentous. But week after week of going to this writers group and hearing this same story get critiqued for different things for the most part, there are times where it starts becoming discouraging because I'm like, oh, Jesus, now it's this I've got to fix. Whereas last week it was that, and the week before it was those things, right? So now it's starting to build this perception that there's a lot I've got to fix in the book. Now, when I pull back up and I stop getting my feelings hurt, I can see that this is little stuff and all of it will improve the book. I have to remind myself of that, though, because the thick skin wavered. It got real thin for a second there for basically the night when I walked out of the writers group. But, again, ground myself in what my aim is, remind myself my goal is to get that published, and these folks are all helping me improve it. These folks are all trying their best with the best intentions to help me see what I could do better in their opinion. I don't have to take it all into consideration or into practice or application. That's my elective. That's my prerogative. But these are things I can do. So it took a little bit of time. It always does. But it's about that balance. Keeping things in perspective, keeping things balanced, keeping a healthy perspective on things, knowing that people just want to help. It's what's best for the story, not my ego and sense of entitlement, not my sense of self-awe, and that everybody should be as awed about me as I am. It's about that story. I owe it to that story. And those people are helping me make that story the best it can be. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. That's a beautiful thing, actually, in my book. So for you, when you think about your thick skin, what are you doing to thicken it? Conversely, what are you avoiding so that no one tests how thick your skin is? And I challenge you, make a list of 1 or 2 or 3 things you're avoiding because you know deep down that you might not have the skin thick enough to tolerate that. And I want you to make a plan for yourself. Pick one of those things, make a plan how you're going to confront that. I want all of us to be on the New York Times bestseller list or making, a living writing. You don't get there without putting your art out there in front of a lot of people and a lot of uncritical opinions. If you're not ready to have other writers help you address your weaknesses, then you're definitely not ready for 10,000 nameless, faceless public critics dragging your work through the mud from their uncritical, non-critical perspective. So let's not do that to ourselves, because that's how people disappear. That's how they stop doing this stuff, and that's a true loss. So make that list for yourself. How are you going to fix it? All right. If you enjoy these episodes, please go tell everyone in the world who is a writer and tell them to listen, order them to. If you would like to have an interview on the show and you're a writer and you're willing and open to talk about personal stuff and your horrible writing experiences, please reach out to me at pulsatingproductions@gmail.com or just go over to pulsating.com, use the contact tab while you're there. And hey, if you're just a fan and you think I'm an okay person, go sign up for the newsletter while you're over at pulsating.com. No spam guarantee. I haven't sent one out in months because I don't want to. I know everybody gets enough emails as it is. So go sign up for it over there. Leave a rating and review. 5 stars are more than welcome over on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Podchaser, wherever you get the podcast from. Let everybody know how awesome it is, please. Thank you. Keep going and writing those wonderful stories that are in your head. And until you hear from me in episode 20, keep being epic.
This has been Horrible Writing, and hopefully after this episode, you suck less than you did at the beginning. I am Paul Sading, your host extraordinaire. You can find me over on the Twitterverse at Writing Horrible and over at paulsading.com/horrible-writing. Until next time, suck less.